Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid announced over the weekend that the Senate would indeed hold votes to pass immigration reform known as the DREAM Act. It's a bill that would grant permanent U.S. residency to non-native children of illegal immigrants if they attend a university for 2 years or enlist in the military service for at least 2 years. While the bill may pass the House, in the Senate it's a virtual non-starter. There, Republicans and moderate Democrats are already lining up to shoot the legislation down, forcing immigrants who've been in our country for decades to continue living in the shadows. This despite the fact that the Congressional Budget Office released a report saying that the DREAM Act would actually reduce our deficit by $1.5 billion over the next 10 years. It would also increase revenue by more than $2 billion. And in a recent poll, 66% of Americans said that they supported passage of the DREAM Act. The White House is also offering up its support for the legislation. In a conference call with reporters, White House Director of Intergovernmental Affairs Cecilia Munoz claimed the administration is working very hard to ensure the bill passes. So what's holding it up? And is this really a good start for immigration reform? To take on this question, former Congressman Tom Tancredo joins me via Skype from Colorado. Congressman, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
You say the DREAM Act is just amnesty for millions. Shouldn't Congress instead pass comprehensive immigration reform now so that people can come out of the shadows?
Well, I'm all for comprehensive immigration reform, just not the kind you have that you would define it, not the way you would define it, I'm afraid.
How so?
Because immigration reform to me simply means really and truly, for a first time in a long, long time, enforcing the law and passing something called E-Verify, mandating it on every employer in the United States of America, making sure that every employee has a valid Social Security number. That's immigration reform, not amnesty.
But Congressman, that's been the law for 50 years or more. Arguably 100 years or more, and, well, maybe 80.
I wish.
But no, it has been the law, and Reagan stopped enforcing that law in 1986, after he gave amnesty to 5 or 6 million people.
In 1986, good thing you brought up 1986, that's right, because one of the biggest mistakes President Reagan ever made was signing an amnesty into effect in that time, and instead of doing what everybody promised and thought and proposed, and that is, that it would reduce illegal immigration, that we would go after employers who were hiring people who were here illegally, that Mexico would work with us to try and reduce illegal immigration. Of course, none of that happened. All it did was exactly what you would expect it to do, increase the number of people coming into the United States.
Well, this was Reagan's gift to his California agricultural supporters, who made him governor and helped get him into the White House. But you know, this idea that we've got to round up these people and all this kind of stuff. I mean, don't you think that if the current law were simply enforced and some employers, some of these millionaire and billionaire fat cats who are getting rich because they've got people who are working who are afraid to complain about the fact that they're being underpaid or working in lousy conditions, if some of those employers had to take a perp walk and go to jail, they would stop employing these folks and you'd see an exodus to Mexico. We don't need your buses.
Yeah, I don't want them. I have never even suggested that. Never in my career have I suggested that what we had to do is, quote, round up all the people who were here illegally. What we have to do is enforce a law which is now on the books. That law is E-Verify. You don't even need the E-Verify. Yeah, pardon me?
You don't even need the E-Verify. I mean, right now there's a law that says that you can't hire somebody unless they're... I mean, I went through this back in the 1980s. I was running an ad agency in Atlanta, and I needed somebody who could speak English, Japanese, and Spanish, because we had a client publishing a newsletter in all 3 languages, ran an ad for it, got a kid who was born in Japan, grew up in Lima, Peru, moved to the United States to go to college, was fluent in all 3 languages, and had a degree in commercial art. He was exactly what we needed. And I had to go through 4 months of song and dance with the INS to prove to them that I couldn't find an American who could do that job. I mean, we used to, and this was early on in the Reagan administration. Then Reagan comes along and just says, you know, we're not going to enforce these laws anymore, and we haven't since then. But I can tell you, I went through it.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad that you understand that the problem is enforcement, and that we should not be doing anything like the DREAM Act that would only encourage more people to come here illegally. And by the way, the DREAM Act has little, if anything, to do with education. If you look the way it's written, you'll find that it is truly an amnesty. It's an amnesty not just for the people who apply, not just for the however many millions of people, and by the way, not just kids. 16 to 34 years old. You can apply to a junior college, and in the process, you become amnestied. And then once you get that status, you can then bring all of your family in because of what we call family unification.
Well, it's not that simple, and you know it.
Oh, yes, it is. Almost certainly is.
I can tell you it's not. My sister-in-law just became a U.S. citizen, and you know, would love to get her family over here, and it's going to be a multi-decade process should anything like that happen. But you say you're concerned about people abusing the system and all this kind of thing. I mean, what about the fact that ever since '86 we've been basically encouraging people to do this, and the DREAM Act will only apply to the children of people who are here and who basically grew up speaking English and think of themselves as American.
Remember, 34-year-old children will be eligible, and anybody who can fraudulently prepare any sort of document will come in and pretend that they, in fact, are eligible.
Well, that's going to happen with anything. There's no way around. You're not going to stop fraud 100%.
No, you're not. But why should you do anything that encourages and entices people to come here illegally? Why? Why don't you do what you said? Why don't you simply enforce the law, or even make it more difficult for people to come here?
Well, I'm entirely in favor of that, but we've had 2 Republican and 2 Democratic administrations in the intervening years, and neither of them have come close to that. So if we're going to have people here in the shadows, don't we at the very least, shouldn't we, as human beings, as fellow human beings, offer them health care and education?
Well, then why in the world would anybody come the right way? Why would anybody go through the brain damage, the incredible time limits, all the expense to come here the right way, if in fact what you're going to do is provide the same benefits to people who have not done it the right way? It is a slap in the face to every single person who's ever come into this country. Which brings us
back to the area where, you know, Congressman Tancredo, where I think you and I agree that we need to enforce the laws that we have.
Absolutely, my friend. That's it. I'm with you 100%.
Okay, thank you, Congressman, for coming on tonight. In my opinion, there's more here than most people are noticing, and more than Tom Tancredo is talking about. The DREAM Act will give amnesty to aliens who join the military. Thomas Jefferson famously said, actually, let me get the quote right. I've got it on the board here. I guess I don't have it on the board. He said, "I hope never to see my country so bereft of prosperity nor bankrupt of honor that its young men will volunteer to be shot at for a sixpence." And that's the bottom line. With multiple deployments, we've got multiple deployments right now where we're sending kids over and over and over again into the military battlefield. And we have created the kind of environment that Jefferson worried about. This is why Jefferson wanted there to be a draft. He wanted every single male between the ages of 17 and 47 to be required to have some military service experience and to have militias at the local and state level and no standing army during time of peace, so that there would be no military-industrial complex. And so we wouldn't have young men willing to be shot at for a sixpence. But now that what the DREAM Act does is it says, you know, if you join the military, we'll give you citizenship. So the pressure to end wars, which comes from people being horrified by their children being killed, or a draft, goes away. Because now you've got a bunch of people who would be eager to become U.S. citizens by joining the military. It's cannon fodder. This is a cannon fodder law. And so what we have is, you know, you can't, this is a, you know, it pumps kids into the military sausage factory. We can have wars without a draft, which means you can have wars without dissent, which means profits for the military-industrial complex. We talked yesterday about that and about Dwight Eisenhower's comments on that. This is not about immigration at all, ultimately, in my mind. It's about money. It's about who's going to make how much money off the military and how to get people, how to get kids into this system so that they can be cannon fodder for the next war. Immigration reform, if we're going to do it, should be honest and comprehensive, bring people out of the shadows, provide a path to citizenship for the people who are here, make them begin at the end of the line and start, you know, all the classic stuff that President Obama has been talking about. Let's do that and do it right. But this DREAM Act, in my opinion, is simply a gift, a handoff to the military-industrial complex, not something that we want to do.